Have you been wanting to do a river table project? I have. I got up my courage, gathered up all the tools that I would need, and I think I was successful. Stay tuned as I take you through everything I learned along the way.
Hi everybody, it's Janet here from Moonkusser Art, and I'm going to be starting a new project. I've been looking forward to doing this one for quite a while. I've been gathering my products to be able to get this done. I've done research, and this is what I've come up with. So the first thing I did was looked into some resin that I wanted to use. I'm going to be creating a small end table using this mold, and it is from, I'm gonna really probably kill the name, but Ahonui Artisans, and I found them on Etsy. They create these molds, and it has a nice little feature so that I make sure that I level everything, so that's pretty cool. I'm excited to be able to use what I consider a really good product for accomplishing this task. Again, I looked into the resin. I like Counterculture. They have some really nice products. And so this is a hard casting resin because this is going to be deep, and I want to do it in one pour if I can. So that's what I've got to get this part done. And the other part that I'm going to do is I'm going to be inserting a piece of wood. I've been wanting to incorporate some nice wood in my pieces, and this is what I've come up with. I found this on Instagram. I bought it through an auction, and this is what's called a maple burl. So it's pretty heavy, and it does not fit into my mold, so I need to have it cut. I do have a saw to do that, so I'm going to be working on that. But the other thing is that it's not cut quite square, so I'm going to need to square that up. And because it's, you know, it's still in a fairly raw state, it's been cut into a slab, but there is, when they set these to dry, they can have a little bit of a twisting to them, so it is definitely not a level piece, and it is not consistent in its depth all the way around. So I am gonna get this planed down, I hope, so that it is equal, and we'll start that. So let's go get this planed.
All right, I'm lucky enough to have a brother-in-law that has a woodworking shop in his house. He invited me to come over on a Sunday, and we worked on this piece of wood together. He put it through the planer, probably 20 times, if not more than that. We had to get that warp out of there, and he was very successful in doing that. He also helped me square up the wood so that it was cut in 90-degree angles for the corners. He put it on his table saw to do that, and yeah, we got it all done. Thanks, Rainer.
So everything is level and smooth. This piece of wood started out as 1.5 inches thick. I was at 1.5 inches, if not more than that. There was a wobble to the wood, so running it through a professional size planer was really terrific. We weren't sure if we could get it done because it's such a small piece of wood as far as a professional size, but we managed. We also trimmed this off because the piece wasn't going to fit in my mold, so we cut it so that it's going to fit perfectly in the mold. One of the things we discovered as we were running it through the planer is we discovered a nail. There it is. But I do want to incorporate this chunk into the whole project, so we squared it off. All right, so let's get a look at where it is now. Yep, we're down to 1 inch. That's a lot of wood that we had to take off to get it squared, or I shouldn't say square, but equal and level on this side and level on that side. So a lot of wood went into the grinding. So I've got a lot of little holes and divots. That's not a surprise. I expected that. So anyway, I've got a little bit of cleaning up to do. I've got this spot here is cleaned out pretty good. See how that's loose? I can't wiggle it out with my finger. I'll have to get some tools, but I'm going to clean that out. I want to get those spots out because those are the spots that are going to cause me an issue. There could be particles that will get released into the resin, and yeah, then I'm going to be playing a game of trying to get those out of the resin, and I don't want that.
I'm going to spend quite a bit of time cleaning this wood up. I'm getting anything that I can find out of there, using any tools that I've got, and using my vacuum cleaner to keep the dust to a minimum because I am working inside and this is in my art studio. So I pick at it and work a little bit more, tap it, see if I can get any particles to fall out, but I want to make sure I get it as clean as possible.
I have the wood here at my resin table, and before I go any further, I want to prep the wood. Now, one of the things you have to remember with wood is it is porous. And when you have a piece of wood such as this, you know, it's got all kinds of different, because it's a burl, it has a lot of different features to it, and that's what makes it interesting, but that's what you have to prepare for before you put resin on it. So I am going to seal this. I'm going to be using polyurethane. I have seen people use resin to do this, but polyurethane is going to go a lot further and it is going to be inexpensive. So in that thought, let's get to it. I'm going to just put a coat over this and get it sealed up and ready to start with working with the resin on it. So let's get that done.
I used a fast drying polyurethane. It's a semi-gloss, and I used a foam brush to apply it, and then I used a smaller brush to get it into those detail spots. It took a total of 5 coats on each side to get it done. Now it's outside in the backyard and I'm doing a quick sand on that. I'm using a 220 grit sandpaper just to buff it up. And then I'm using my airbrush to blow out any of those fine dust particles after I've wiped it down, and then I'll still wipe it down on the inside.
Okay, I am all done cleaning up my wood, and so it turned out 5 coats of polyurethane on there, and you know, I just got tired of putting the polyurethane on. So I've got it here in my mold, and there's a very slight gap right there. So I tried to make it consistent. Let's see if I can get it over me. There. Tried to make it consistent all the way around. Yeah, because, you know, it's going to flow there. And I hope it flows there. If it doesn't flow there, I'm in big trouble. I kept the points on the burl. I liked the look of that. And you can see my color down in there. I've got a little corner over here. So these braces here, they go all the way across, and that's supporting, or I should say anchoring this into its corner so it's not going to move once I start pouring the resin. I've got some holes in the wood where the resin will flow into those cavities. Here you can see there's like a little cave back in there. So anyway.
And moving on. I've calculated how much hard cast resin I'm going to be using. I'm going to be batching up a total of 66 fluid ounces. This is a 2-to-1 ratio, so I need to measure that carefully. and I'll be tinting that. I'll be using Liquitex acrylic ink, and that is going to be the Turquoise Deep. That's the color I've selected in there. So let's get to batching and working on this resin piece. Now I realized that I wasn't recording, so I went and quickly grabbed my phone. I wanted to show you how nicely the Liquitex acrylic ink blends in. I chose it for the primary reason of its clarity in the resin. It is crystal clear. That little cup there, I used that to make sure that I was going to be happy with the color. I didn't want this to be dark. I wanted to be able to really see the wood through the resin. So I used that cup to check my color, and I was happy with it, so I started to fill in the voids. Now I'm taking that first batch of resin and I'm going to start pouring that in slowly. If you get close to the mold and pour it in slowly, you're going to have less bubbles introduced into your resin. So that's really handy to be aware of that. The braces are spaced apart so that I can get a small cup into these smaller areas and get the resin filled in there. And I use a toothpick to kind of assist it to get down into those spots. And I worked on this, here I am batching up a little bit more resin because, don't you know, my calculations were off and the voids were taking up more space than I thought. So I had to batch up 12 more ounces of resin. You can see my color is slightly different. That's why you want to try to get it all mixed up in one batch. But what I ended up doing was using the popsicle stick to blend it in there, and it worked out well. I'm just going about and checking everything, making sure that I'm getting the resin to work into all the areas around the sides. I used my small torch there to pop the bubbles, and I worked on this for a total of an hour and a half. The resin is a very slow cure. You have to work in temperatures between 70 and 75 degrees. And you also have to make sure that your humidity in the room is low. You have to have 60% or less in your percentage of humidity. So I do have a dehumidifier running in my basement to help me with that and get all those bubbles popped out. And then I'm going to babysit this thing for about 5 hours. I'm going to be checking it for bubbles as it's starting to cure. Okay, it's been an hour and a half since I poured. And I have this spot here that keeps giving me bubbles. Don't like that. And I have another spot right there. Oops. These are giving me bubbles. And one spot over here. You see them there right along the edge? Here's some bubbles. So I keep babysitting it and popping the bubbles, and hopefully I'll stay in control. Wish me luck. Okay, it's been about an hour, and since the last time I popped bubbles, and we're still getting bubbles, and I can feel a lot of heat coming up off of the surface, so it's hot. You can see like a line there towards the edge. See how that's curing there? So this is what we've got going on. Let's get the torch. Whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, I don't want to drop this phone. into this. That would be bad. So you can see it's definitely slowing down. Let's get these over here. Here's some more. Whoop. All right, couple over here. That's a little wonky. See how wonky that is when I get the light. That's wonky. But the bubbles are slowing. Things are getting thick. Really warm. Really, really warm. All right. I'll be back. Good morning, everybody. It has been 40 hours since I poured in this mold. I've been keeping this, lovely storage plastic container over top just to keep any dust off. I left all my pouring stuff over here on the side. And one of the things that I like to do, since this is a hard cast for deep pours resin, it's going to cure slower. And I can tell you that when I was coming down, checking on this mold, it was pretty darn hot. Not incredibly hot, but it was hot. And you can see over here, see that little puddle down there on my table? I actually had a leak from the mold. So this is the first time I'm using this mold, and it states in the instructions when you get it that it is already sealed and ready for your first use. So you don't have to do anything. Don't take the sides off or anything, which I didn't, and you can pour. And it sprung a tiny little leak on me. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, let's, this is very heavy. Okay, first thing I guess I should do is take this off because that'll go tumbling. Boom. Look at that color, isn't that not pretty? I got, where'd it go? There it is. Got one of my hairs, not my hair, one of my dog's hairs. Managed to get in there, but that's okay. I'm going to be sanding down the surface anyway. But hard to the touch, rock hard. Love it. Very shiny. Doesn't matter. It's going to get sanded. So anyway, this is looking really good. I'm going to be taking it out of the mold soon. And I left all these here because this was how I was testing as it was curing yesterday morning when I came down to the studio to check on it. I was touching this little drip and it was sticky in the morning. But by the afternoon, I could touch it. That would have been its 24-hour mark. And I could come down here and touch this and it was not sticky. All right, let me clean up my mess here to get you guys a better view. Get that out of the way. So there's my leak. And let's, went underneath the foot there. That's what was sticking to the tabletop. Oh boy, this is heavy. So only that one tiny little spot. I got lucky. I feel very lucky that that's all I got, because I've heard horror stories about people, coming down and finding this empty. It's all over their tabletop, onto the floor. Yeah.
big problems. So here's my little tiny puddle, all cured and dry. I'm pretty happy that that's all that happened to me. That's maybe a teaspoon of resin, tops. So I got lucky. All right. So I'm going to be taking this out, and I loosen these off and pull. These are my wedges. Now this is going to be, of course, you know, it's down in the resin, so I'll have to snap that free. But those just slide right off. Nice and easy. Another wedge. Another one stuck down into the surface. Take those off. So that's a good system. I like that system. You know, I've seen people clamp to their, you know, over the side of the mold and onto their blocks and with large woodworking clamps. But is that not pretty? I'm excited. I've been fiddling around, you know, getting ready to take this out of here, but I'm stopping to show you. And I don't know that it's hard to pick this up. Hold on. Let's whoa, almost dropped it. Can you guys tell that this corner sunk? That's a weird development. Not happy about that, because that's going to mean that that corner is going to not have the color. I don't know what caused that. So I'm checking out, you know, looking around here. So the resin stayed at a good level along here. And then here, it drops down in its level. Stayed good back in here. Stayed good in here. So over here, I have another drop in its level. So I guess in areas, I don't know what the heck. That's kind of strange. In areas that it's a large quantity, that's the only thing I can think of. Large quantities, it just pulls here too. All right, well, let's get it out, and you'll be able to see better what I mean. Sorry. All right, so being careful to use a nice rubber mallet to remove those wedges off of the surface, and then I'm going to tap the sides, but I forgot. I had to get the Allen wrench and loosen those off, and they come out really easily. A little bit of residue there, but it'll clean up fine. They tap off quite nicely. Then I go get a small chisel and find a spot where I can get that wedged in there, pry up the piece, and do it on the other end. A couple of taps, and there it comes. Okay, so that came out nice and clean. I was trying to be careful not to damage the mold. So, you know, I paid a lot for this thing, and I want to get a lot of uses out of it. here's this beauty. And I'm very pleased with my transparency. Let's see if we can get you guys a good look at what I was talking about here on this corner. Can you see that? See how it sloped down? Okay. Did the same thing over here. So at the corners, it's very interesting. It just, you know, the resin wants to drop down. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so it's out of the mold. I'm very pleased with my color. My lighting in here is making it look blue, but it is turquoise. I will do some shots of it outside, but it's still, I can feel that it is still just a little soft, and you know, it was a good time to get it out of the mold and pop off. You can see the blocks, you know. So everything's gonna get sanded down here too. You guys, it's hard to show it. The resin pulled down in as it cured. But that's okay, because I'm gonna come back over it with another coat of resin. So that's not gonna be a problem. My biggest disappointment, honestly, is how that, there's a good look at it. You can see how that corner just really falls off there. See that? So, okay, you know, we live and we learn. Not really sure what we do about that. Moving on.
All right, I gave it another day to sit and get a little bit harder. I was just concerned about the soft texture that I was picking up. I'm using a 150 grit sandpaper, and I'm just sanding over the entire surface. I had some spots where, you know, the polyurethane was showing through. So everything gets sanded down. I do the edges with a 220. And now I'm using my airbrush, and I'm removing as much dust as I can. Just going over it carefully and making sure I'm getting all that debris off of there to get ready to put some clear coats over top of this. So get it cleaned up, and I'm going to do the same inside as well.
Okay, so I've cleaned everything off, gotten all the dust off using the alcohol. And now that I've sanded the back, this is the bottom, I found just a couple of little tiny things that must have been sitting inside the mold. This is my bigger thing. I don't know what it is. My husband says it's a piece of metal, but I can't believe that that's what it is. Anyhow, this one, I dug it out with a pin, but I'm not completely happy with it. So I've got my handy dandy Dremel, and we're going to just Dremel those out very carefully.
So the drill tip that I have in there, it's very small. These pieces are very small. I don't feel like I have to get too crazy over it. I just want to dig them out and drill them out essentially with the Dremel, and I'm able to, you know, not make a huge mess and just very carefully work those pieces right out. Once they're out of there, even though there is a mark in the surface, when I go to clear coat the entire surface, those will completely disappear. Any scratches and things like that from the sanding, they're all gone when you clear coat.
And that's it. So now I'm going to be doing a flood coat on the back of this, because what happened while this was in the mold, by the way, so you can still see these marks here, but when I pour clear resin in there, the resin will just make those disappear. But the other thing that I have, this is where, I think you guys can see it. Try to get it there. So you can see this is where the resin didn't flow into these areas. A couple of spots here, no big deal. So I've scratched the surface of those so that the resin will adhere and it will fill those in, and we'll get a nice smooth surface and clean that up. All right.
Okay, I've leveled my piece on the tabletop. I have my counterculture Artist Resin, and that's what I'm going to be using to clear coat. I've also put my bullseye level, makes sure, like I said, that everything's level. And I have batched up, this is 10 ounces of the Artist Resin. And I just measure it right into the cup. You can see how nice and clear it is. It's got bubbles, but that's not a big deal because we're just going to torch the bubbles out. But you can see it's a very thick resin. I like this resin. It has a heat resistance of up to 500 degrees, which is awesome. And you can see I've got a tape dam there. So let's start pouring. I'm going to start working on what I've identified as my problem spots back here. So those were the spots where the resin didn't get to. And maybe I've got some spots where, you know, whatever happened. And I'm using a toothpick first to work them into those spots. Then I pour the rest of my resin out. And I'm going to warm it up and use this spreading blade to get a nice uniform spread of the resin across the surface, because it is nice and level back here. Again, this was the bottom and that mold was correctly leveled. So I'm pleased with how that worked out. Just going to get those bubbles, work it into the corners, and one last torch. Check for any little stray whatevers. Yep, and put it to bed. And it's the next morning. We take off that cover and we're going to remove the tape dam that I applied. It comes off very easily. I love this painter's tape. Just pull that off and we've got nice, sharp, clean sides. Looks great. Okay, guys and gals, we're out here in the yard because guess what? We're going to be doing more sanding, but nothing major. This time I'm just going to be using my Dremel. Let's see if I can get a shot of that. You guys see that there's a lip edge there? It's hard to see. I'm sorry. Maybe there you can see it. Anyway, there's just a little bit of a lip edge, and I fully expected that when I put my tape dam on. And here you can see it's, you know, the tape was a little wobbly, so that's what you get. Anyhow, I'm going to take that lip edge off because, again, this is going to be the back and we want to get that nice and even. So let's get to it with the Dremel. Now, since I don't have a professional tool to get a precise edge, I came up with making a jig. I have a piece of slippery cardboard there. I put a tile on it and I rest my Dremel right on that, and then I can just slide it along and it gives me a uniform cut to bring down that edge. Pretty sweet. I'm resourceful, guys. Done. All right, we're back working on what will be the top. You can see that the top has been sanded down. And I'm using the hard cast again. This is 12 ounces of the hard cast. I had some divots, some deeper little spots, and you know, I showed you that one corner that had sloped in. So I didn't want to, you know, I really didn't want to take any chances that I was going to have any more shrinkage problems or pour an area too deep and have the resin crinkle up on me, whatever. So I went with doing a layer of the hard cast to fill in those pockets. I was careful to remove any particles that I saw. I tried to get the bubbles as best I could. And when everything was said and done, it looked good. I put the top on and left it to cure overnight. All right, it has been 24 hours. And it's looking good in there. Let's take this off and get it out of the way. Look at how those light bulbs. This is looking awesome. Okay, I need to take off my tape dam. This is hard. This is not pretty. Read the writing right through it on my handy dandy yogurt cups down there. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay. So now I'm going to remove the tape dam and see what I have to do for prep, and I can get my final coat. All right, back out into the backyard, and with the sander, I'm just quickly taking off that edge around where the tape was. I'm not really concerned about, if I'm getting it rolled over nicely or not. I just want to get it sanded down so that there isn't a lip. I'm using a 220 sandpaper and then wiping it clean. All right, back into the studio where it's nice and warm, and I'm putting the clear coat over the top. This is 14 ounces of the Counterculture DIY, their Artist Resin. It's very thick, again, very durable for surfaces. I like to use my fingertip to spread the resin around on the edges. I wanted it to be thin. Check everything over carefully with a toothpick, cover it, and we'll see it tomorrow. All right, we're outside. I got lucky. It is a gorgeous sunny day. It's cold, but it's sunny. Take a look at how the light goes right through this resin. It is spectacular. I am very happy with the results that I got on this piece. Now I still have a lot more to do. I'm gonna figure out how I want to make a table out of this. I'll probably be bugging my brother-in-law again, so I'll show pictures when it's all said and done. I'll make sure to post them for you guys to see, but I am very pleased with it. It is not an easy project. This was a lot of work. I prepared for it for a long time, thinking about how I was going to do it and what materials I was going to use, but the end result is just incredible. I'm very, very pleased. I hope you guys enjoyed my tutorial on how I went about it. I showed you all the problems that I had along the way, and I like to be very honest and tell you what is going on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Moonkusser Art.